Hey everybody, it's GM Lee with my first video in a brand new series called Savage Settings, where I'll be creating a campaign setting during the video, using the rules for the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, along with any appropriate source books. In each video, we'll look at a campaign setting we're probably already familiar with in RPGs, and then ask ourselves, how do we take it in a different direction? I'll share what I know about SWADE companions we can use, as well as available source books and materials from other publishers. And then break down the likely genre conventions and how their important elements should influence the setting. Then, some mechanics. Select which Savage Worlds setting rules to put in place, followed by diving right into the new campaign setting. What is it and what sets it apart? Plus, any new homebrew rules or new hindrances, edges, and skills available for players. Lastly, for fun and inspiration, I'll design complete characters. A group of player characters with brief backstories, prominent NPCs for the setting, and finally, some big bad villains, as well as adventure seeds you can get started with. The setting we'll explore today will be the Victorian Age, a time of rapid industrialization and social progress, with the world still largely shrouded in mystery. Cities like London and Paris offered a blend of sophistication and danger, while Russia, Germany, and other European countries were a breeding ground for political intrigue. And the untamed wilderness of Africa, the lawless frontier of the American West, and the exotic allure of the Orient beckoned adventurers and explorers. This era was shaped by authors like Verne, Dickens, and Stevenson, blending romance, adventure, and the terrifying into a rich tapestry for storytelling. Now, many role-playing games have drawn inspiration from this vibrant period, but they often focus on just a single aspect of it. Steampunk, chief among them. To truly capture the essence of the Victorian Age, we must explore its full potential, from high crimes to a dirty underworld, from the hollowed halls of stuffy academia to unexplored ruins and vistas. From the supernatural to the scientific, the possibilities are endless. So, rather than limit ourselves to a single facet of this rich period, let's create a setting that allows us to explore all of them. By carefully blending historical accuracy with imaginative flair, we'll create a truly unique and engaging Victorian RPG setting. So what will help make for a great Victorian Age campaign? Well, here are a few of the genre conventions associated with that time, and these should be found in a Victorian setting. First, there's high adventure. Victorian high adventure offers a thrilling blend of dashing heroism, duels by sword or pistol, intrepid exploration, and exotic locales. Then there's Gothic Horror. Now, Gothic Horror combines mystery and the supernatural into a dark and atmospheric setting. Players can confront the horrific and often tragic with a focus on character development and emotional depth. And of course, there's steampunk. Now, steampunk fuses the past and the future, creating a world of intricate machinery and daring exploration, with crafty engineers and brave airship pilots navigating sprawling metropolises from the streets below or the skies above. Then we have the genre that discovered its roots in this area, and that's espionage. Victorian espionage is a world of deception and intrigue, where messages are sent between diplomats and couriers. The era's complex political landscape and the thrill of the chase provide a rich backdrop for gripping tales. And there's one more genre convention to add, but I'll discuss that when we look at character creation. So, if you wanted to create a campaign, what source materials are available to help out? Well, core rules for SWADE, obviously, and with time and research, this is honestly all you need. But I started with some of the official source books, like the Horror Companion, and I used it for its monsters, although I stuck to the classics here. Ancient vampires, patchwork creations of man, werewolves of the night, and ghosts, phantoms unable to break free from the earthly plane. I don't want anything too crazy here. While Cthulhu Mythos creatures can certainly find a comfortable home in the 1890s, our setting is firmly rooted in Victorian sensibilities. Gothic horror is about building a mood, creating a suspense over the adventure that is sophisticated and restrained without the shock and awe of gore and carnage. But make no mistake, when it does occur, the violence is vicious, sudden, and deadly. The Horror Companion is also a terrific resource for character archetypes for PCs and NPCs. Imagine a gypsy fortune teller helping out a group of players if they're stuck for a clue, or maybe they're foretelling their doom that will befall them as an adventure begins. Or how about a medium leading a seance during one session, building the tension in the room as a voice speaks to the players from beyond the grave. Now, Alchemist, that's an archetype I'll use for a setting-specific NPC we can look at later. The Fantasy Companion is also very helpful. You can find the Alchemist archetype there as well. Now, its section on traps, that's helpful to any setting or campaign, honestly. But where the Fantasy Companion can really help is if you want to take a Victorian setting down a more fantastic path, such as introducing Fey folk. Fairies have an ancestry write-up, and depending on how much crossover you want into the Fey world, you might find yourself in the Fantasy Companion quite a bit. And if a really true urban fantasy Victorian Age setting is what you're after, you can use both the Horror Companion and the Fantasy Companion to tremendous effect. Both books can also be used if you're looking for an extensive list of ancestry options, such as vampires, lycanthropes, elves, ratlings, and so many more. Besides the companion books, I started looking through books from other creators. I was looking for something Victorian specific. Now, the first book I looked at I already owned, and that's Pulp Fantastic from Battlefield Press International. Believe it or not, the 20s and 30s actually have a lot in common with a Victorian setting. And it has terrific write-ups for numerous archetypes that would fit right in. But I was still looking for something specific to the period, and after a quick search online, I found a great book called Gaslight that I purchased at DriveThruRPG. And guess what? It's by Battlefield Press as well, and I've put their link in the video description below so you can check them out. I found the Gaslight book to be absolutely perfect for what I wanted. It offers the full gamut of historical and fantastic elements, blending technology and sorcery within the Victorian era, from the mid to late 1800s. It's a comprehensive guide for players and game masters, covering character creation options, new hindrances, edges, and skills, as well as modifications to existing ones. It's for the deluxe edition of Savage Worlds, but any work that needs to be done in converting them is minor. Now, my favorite part of the source book, or any source book, is how they handle actual history. And this is where Gaslight really shines for me as a source book. The Almanac, the Worldview Gazetteer, and the historical timeline provides a snapshot of the Victorian world that, for me, is worth the price of the book alone. And my next favorite section is on the various secret societies and organizations that could populate your world. And that's an absolute must-have for the GM, as well as any players looking for backstory ideas. There's also legendary artifacts, lost world adventures, and so much more. It's a really fun read, and you'll see how I've used it throughout the rest of this video. Now, there's many other books as well, and notable among them is the Rippers series of game books, and you can find them at the Pinnacle website. Now, full transparency, I don't own any of the books, so I really don't know much about them other than the written descriptions I've found online. Yet, any quick tour of social sites or discussion boards will reveal The game is so popular with its fans, they really love it. And if you loved the movie Van Helsing, then the Ripper's setting is perfect for you. But for me, it drilled down a little too much into just horror for our setting. Plus, I already had Gaslight, and it covered everything I seemed to need. Now, if you're looking for more information, there's many books available for Cthulhu by Gaslight, for example, and these can be great resources. For a Victorian Age campaign, here are the recommended setting rules I'd put in place. The first is Born a Hero, where heroes ignore rank requirements when selecting edges during character creation. Next is Fanatics, and when a wildcard enemy is the target of a successful attack, the GM can have one of the minions take the hit instead. Then there's Fast Healing. Wildcards make natural healing rolls once per day instead of every 5 days. And then with Bumps and Bruises, where you can recover 1 level of fatigue every 4 hours. Of course, you have to have High Adventure, where you can spend a penny to temporarily activate a new combat edge for a single round. There's multiple languages, because in the Victorian Age, heroes trekked around the world and didn't usually have to struggle with language, so characters can automatically have the linguist edge for free. Then there's Unarmored Hero, because often Victorian heroes, they don't wear armor, or if they do, there's very little of it. But the villains can. So if a wild card chooses not to wear any armor besides shields, they can get a +2 bonus to their soak rolls. There's more details for these settings rules in the core SWADE book. And here's what I hope you've been waiting for, this setting description that I've created. It'll allow us to tackle all the different Victorian genres I've already mentioned and more. So let's set the scene. It's Europe, the 1890s. A Gilded Age masks a world of shadow, where steam-powered progress clashes with ancient darkness. Cities are marvels of industry and breeding ground for the occult. London is a fog-enshrouded criminal maze. Berlin, a rising industrial titan. Paris, a city of lights and secrets. And the majority of the vast expanse of Russia is untamed, equally majestic and brutal. Each of these harbor their own unique blend of the mundane and the supernatural. The 1890s are a time of rapid change and upheaval, a powder keg of revolution and reaction. Anarchists sow chaos while unseen forces manipulate events from the shadows. Conspiracies weave their way through governments, economies, and even the supernatural realm. Against this backdrop, a covert network of the continent's elite emerges to stand united against this growing threat. Secret agents, occult investigators, daring adventurers, and many more extraordinary individuals are drawn from law enforcement, intelligence, and even religious orders to band together against the shadows. They are the last line of defense against the encroaching darkness. You are modern cavaliers, dressed in 3-piece armor made of tweeds and silks. Your mission? To protect civilization from those who would destroy it. You are the Knights of Crown and Cross. There's the campaign setting. It's easy enough to bring characters together. They're united in a common cause, which helps getting adventures started. But there's lots of room for inter-party conflict. Just because you agree on a cause doesn't mean you subscribe to the same course of action. And if the characters are all of different nationalities, that could provide some fun interplay and character rivalry as well. Or at the very least, the opportunity to broaden your role-playing talents. So, in creating characters, there's not too much I wanted to add about skills or hindrances or anything else, but I did want to promote Gaslight once again. There's a lot in it. Now, I don't agree with all of it, mind you. For instance, champion as an edge isn't recommended, but I think it's perfect in this setting. One hindrance in particular, though, stood out for me, and that's love as a minor hindrance. Gothic romance intertwines passionate love with dark, atmospheric settings and supernatural elements, creating a tale of both desire and dread. So the hindrance is perfect for our setting. Love, a powerful emotion, can be a double-edged sword in a Victorian setting. This hindrance represents a tumultuous, often destructive relationship that puts you in conflicting directions. Perhaps your love is unrequited, or perhaps you're entangled with someone beyond your social standing. Whenever your heart clashes with your head, a spirit roll with a raise is required to prioritize logic over emotion. As a player, you can expect your love to become a recurring element in your adventures. They might put themselves in peril, forcing you to make difficult choices. Or worse, they could become a villain, testing the limits of your loyalty. As a GM, you should use this complication to truly challenge the player, forcing them to grapple with the complexities of both love and duty. When it comes to the characters I've created, as usual in my videos, I use the Foundry Virtual Tabletop for all examples. I also use top-down tokens for character artwork, almost exclusively those from Greg Bruni. In fact, he just recently released a set of Victorian characters. But I'm sure a lot of you are still lucky enough to play together in person. So if you're looking for Victorian and steampunk figures, look no further than David Oakham and Oakham Arts. Now, this guy is so prolific. There's figures, accessories, and buildings you can use in your game, or for practically any game or setting imaginable. Check out his website. There's so much to it, and the link is below in the video description. Okay, let's dive right in. Our first player character is Marie Dval, a Parisienne, and an orphan raised by the iron hand of her uncle, a captain in the National Police Force of France. With an unconventional upbringing, she developed in her a blend of discipline and independence. Trained in the intricacies of medicine, her keen eye for detail extends beyond the human body to the meticulous examination of crime scenes. As a detective, she is a relentless pursuer of truth, and her skepticism a shield against the extraordinary. She is also trained in SWADE, a martial art from France, and her physical fortitude is second only to her greatest weapon, an analytical mind. So with Marie Dval, we have, for attributes, smarts at a D8, then agility, spirit, and vigor at D6, and strength at D4. This makes perfect sense with her focus on being both a doctor as well as a detective. So from that perspective, we have healing at a D6, we have academics at a D6, and then we've got research at a D8, along with notice at a D6. And then from the fighting skills, we have athletics at a D6 and fighting at a D6, followed by shooting at an introductory D4. For equipment, she carries a Mass 1873 revolver, which is a French make, a doctor's bag, and a magnifying glass. For edges and hindrances, we have calculating and investigator. Again, this all makes perfect sense with her role as a detective. Then martial artist, reflecting her status as an expert in SWADE. She is cautious due to her over-analyzing nature, but curious because she likes to push the boundaries of knowledge and understanding. But she's also a skeptic with Doubting Thomas. Now, if we were to take her up to a seasoned level, I'd start by raising her healing and academics up to D8s each. Then you would have an agility raise to bring that up to a D8, followed by making her more effective in combat by raising fighting and shooting. And then finally, adding feint to make her a more effective combat person, but also taking into account, again, her analytical and calculating nature. Next up, let's bring some Wild West influence straight to Europe. Here we have Eli Lighthorse, a mixed heritage deputy U.S. Marshal and a product of the American frontier. He is armed with unwavering grit and a pair of twin Colt peacemakers. While his primary role is to uphold the law, Lighthorse's survival instinct has honed his skills beyond the badge, making him equally adept at the brutal efficiency of gunplay as he is at the subtleties of larceny, such as picking a lock or pilfering a pocket. Eli is on temporary assignment with the Knights on loan from the Marshal's Service. With Eli and a look at his attributes, we're going to have agility as his highest attribute at a D8, followed by smarts, spirit, and strength all at D6, but one attribute has to give to start off with, and that'll be vigor at a D4. We wanted a nice, solid basis of skills, so we've got athletics, fighting, notice, persuasion, riding, shooting, and stealth all at D6. For equipment, Eli carries twin Colt peacemakers, a Winchester 73 rifle, a Bowie knife, handcuffs, and lockpicks. For edges and hindrances, he has ambidextrous and two-gun kits so that he suffers no penalties carrying his two pistols in each hand. He's got streetwise, reflecting his understanding of the criminal element. And then for hindrances, we have code of honor and loyal, which make him a terrific comrade. But he also has a habit, and that habit is gambling. And unfortunately, Eli doesn't have the skill to back it up, so he loses a fair bit. If we were to have 4 advances for Eli to bring him up to seasoned, I'd start by investing in his stealth and thievery to bring those up to D6s. Then let's work on that missing attribute of vigor. That'll be at a D6. Then to make sure he's the most effective he can be as a lawman, shooting and fighting, we'll raise those 2 skills, bring them up to D8. And then finally, to make sure he's the fastest draw around, with the 4th advance bringing him up to seasoned, we'll select quick draw. Then we have Frederick Voit, a German engineer and scientist, and a man of quiet intellect and boundless curiosity. His mind is a complex machine of logic and reason, and it's constantly churning out innovative solutions to the world's problems. Yet the vigorous world of spycraft and intrigue clash with his methodical nature. A reluctant agent, Voit finds himself driven by a sense of duty and a hope that his inventions can serve a great good, although he often finds himself out of his depth in the dangerous world of espionage. With Frederick, we have the most important attribute being smarts at a D8. That's then followed by agility, strength, and vigor all at D6, and spirit at D4. Frederick is a little timid. For skills, the most important ones here are repair at a D8, as well as weird science at a D8. Then we have regular science at a D6, notice and electronics all at D6 as well. For equipment, well, he is a weird scientist, so his equipment has equally weird names. For starters, he carries a galvanic arc voltaic disruptor rifle, essentially bolt, and a conductive electrostatic repulsion field belt, which is protection. He also carries an engineering toolkit and an electrostatic torch, which is basically an electric lantern or a Victorian flashlight. For edges and hindrances, he has alertness because he is sharp of mind, the arcane background of weird science, and then Mr. Fix-It. For hindrances, he's curious but hesitant, again that meekness, and then bad eyes, although Frederick frequently hides this by not wearing his glasses. He's very self-conscious about it. Now, if he were seasoned, we would work on that by first introducing a new edge of having additional power points. We'd raise 2 skills, electronics and science, Then with the third advance, we'd have new powers that we would introduce. And finally, with the fourth advance bringing him up to seasoned, we'd raise his spirit attribute. For new equipment, he has a neural vertigo inducer field, which basically is a taser, so it inflicts stun. And then photoluminescent optic augmentation lenses, which provide him with dark sight. Adding some brawn to the group, there's Alexi Kaladan, a towering figure and product of the harsh Crimean steppes. A seasoned soldier with a body forged by battle, his strength and endurance are matched only by his spirit. Equally at home with the precision of a rifle or the brutal efficiency of a Crimean warbow, he is a lethal force. He's a blend of arrogance and loyalty, a complex character marked by both ruthlessness and an unwavering camaraderie. For Alexi, we're going to make strength his largest attribute to start, followed closely by vigor, spirit, and agility, all at D6. His most important skills are athletics at a D8, as well as then followed by stealth, shooting, fighting, and intimidation, all at D6. For equipment, he carries a shashka, which is basically a Cossack saber, a Crimean warbow, a Sharp's Big 50 rifle, and a Russian-made revolver. With edges and hindrances, he has brave, brute, and menacing, which increases his intimidation by quite a bit. And for hindrances, we have arrogant, ruthless, and stubborn. Now, if we were to bring Alexi up with 4 advances, we would start them by raising his attribute of vigor up to a D8. And then we'd add 3 new edges in a row: Iron Jaw, Nerves of Steel, and Brawler. And finally, we have Charlotte Blackmore, the daughter of an English baron. She is a woman raised to be a master of horsemanship, marksmanship, and the art of survival. Despite her aristocratic lineage, she is as comfortable in a tavern as she is in a ballroom. She possesses a deep knowledge of the occult, taught to her by her mother, who is rumored to be of gypsy descent. Charlotte has cast aside the weight of her family's expectations and embraced the world of shadow and steel, a warrior against the forces of darkness. Now with Charlotte, we're going to have an agility of D8, smarts, spirit, and vigor of D6, and a strength of D4. Her main skills of importance are, well, she's got a number of them right across the board here. Athletics, fighting, notice, occult, persuasion, riding, shooting, and stealth. For equipment, she has quite a lot of it, but she only carries what she needs in the actual moment. But she can choose from a repeating crossbow, a number of stakes along with a hammer, a Lee Enfield rifle and a British Webley revolver, a longsword, a holy symbol, which is her crucifix, and a leather neck protector. For edges and hindrances, she has aristocrat, champion, danger sense, and then hindrances are heroic and overconfident. Charlotte hasn't encountered anything she can't handle, at least not yet. Now, if we were to look at creating some advances for her, I'd bring her strength up with the next advance, then continue her intensive combat training with martial artist, two-fisted, and then finally, I would raise 2 skills of fighting and shooting. Now, let's look at a few of the prominent NPCs I've created for this setting. Since the players belong to an organization, they're going to have support and help. So first up is a renowned individual from actual history, the Count of St Germain. The Count of St Germain remains a captivating enigma of the 1700s in Europe. A man of extraordinary knowledge and refinement, he moved effortlessly among the nobility, equally adept at discussing philosophy, science, or the finer points of music. Yet it was his claims of immortality and mysticism that truly set him apart. Some dismissed him as a charlatan, while others believed him to be a master of occult sciences. Regardless of the truth, his legend persists, a testament to the enduring fascination with the mysterious and the unknown. Now, who was he really? Probably a very charismatic con man, but in our game, he's going to be so much more. For the Count, we're going to start off with his most important attributes of smarts and spirit at a D10 each, vigor at D8, and agility at D6. His strength, however, is only D4. His most important attributes are generally all mental or of the persuasive nature. He has academics, alchemy, common knowledge, occult, performance, persuasion, all at D10, as well as notice and research at D8, then taunt and fighting at D6. For equipment, he carries a sword cane. With edges and hindrances, there's quite a few. Again, he's had many advances over time. From the Fantasy Companion, we have the edges of Alchemist, Chemist, and Master Alchemist. Then also the related hindrance of he needs material components in order to use his powers. His powers are literally his potions. From normal edges from the SWADE core rulebook, we have Aristocrat, Charismatic, Ageless and Older Than I Look, then Strong-Willed and the related edges of Work the Room and Work the Crowd. The Knights of Crown and Cross are also helped out by the major churches as well as countries in Europe. So we have Deacon Silas Thorne, the group's money man, and secretly so much more. A devout Catholic, he's a man of quiet authority, as unassuming as his appearance. As the financial steward of the group, he is meticulous and shrewd, managing the church's resources with a banker's precision. Yet beneath this calm facade lies a darker calling. As an exorcist, Thorne possesses a deep knowledge of the occult and a steely resolve to combat the forces of darkness. His faith is his armor, and his compassion for the afflicted a guiding light. Deacon Silas has spirit as a D12, followed by smarts at a D8, vigor at a D6, strength at a D6, but an agility of only D4. For his skills, he has athletics, common knowledge. Common knowledge is at a D6. His faith, though, is the most important at D10, followed by intimidation at a D8 and occult at a D8, as well as research at a D8. He has to be prepared to literally face those demons. For equipment, he carries a dagger, a Bible, a crucifix, and a flask of holy water. For his edges and hindrances, he has brave, elan, iron will. He's also strong-willed. Then he's picked up additional power points and new powers. He then has priest, aura of courage, and mercy. For his hindrances, he has elderly and vow, which relates to his vow to his religious order. For powers, he has healing, protection, relief, and smite. And then from the horror companion, specific to the exorcist archetype, he has exorcism and sanctuary. And if you're a group of player characters, you might want or need a base of operations. For starters, I keep thinking about famous European landmarks. For a group of Victorian heroes navigating the world, Europe's iconic landmarks offer more than just visual appeal. They can also serve as vital operational hubs. For instance, the Eiffel Tower with its intricate lattice work can conceal hidden headquarters. Or maybe Big Ben provides a secure structure for intelligence gathering and safekeeping. Even the Colosseum, a relic of Rome's grandeur, can be a clandestine training ground and a symbol of the group's defiance against threats. These architectural marvels become more than just tourist attractions. They can be citadels of hope, bastions against the darkness. Now, I'm not going to actually design a base here. I think it's pretty simple to do with the rules. And although normally I balk at the idea of a base with a hindrance, a Victorian campaign is the perfect place for it. And then there's a team vehicle. And as far as I'm concerned, there's one and only one to choose, and that's a Zeppelin or an airship, the ideal form of transportation in the Victorian Age. Maybe even take it one step further. What if the airship was also your base? That would be so cool. And I can just picture a Zeppelin moored to the Eiffel Tower. Now that we've established our heroes, let's look at the villains of our campaign setting. And chief among them is a rival secret organization out to destabilize Europe. But who? As a GM, I want an organization to be effective for adventures and also make sense. Now, originally, I decided immediately on using the Illuminati as the evil organization. Though completely fictional, there's enough about them in the general media to give them some clout and understanding with a group of players. But upon reading Gaslight, the book outlines several important organizations and secret societies that you could use in a Victorian campaign setting. They're not only evil in some cases, these organizations also have unique focuses and activities, ranging from combating supernatural threats to engaging in diplomatic activities and humanitarian efforts. These organizations include MI7, a secretive British group, Division 4, their American counterparts, the Fraternal Order of Freemasons, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the Invisible College, a Victorian Age version of the Knights of the Round Table, the Order of St. Rochelle, and of course, as I'd already mentioned, the Order of the Illuminati. I'll stick with the Illuminati. With an organization, the interactions players have should actually generally be on the periphery. Characters are interrupting their plans in an adventure, actively engaging agents or cultists that act on the organization's behalf. But the primary big bads within the organization will largely be either unknown or, when known, unreachable. Turning the tables on them should be part of a climactic story arc that takes place over many, many sessions. And should the players continue to be a total wrench in the gears of any organization's plans, well, they'd be in their right mind to send more than just extras to deal with them. They would send special operatives. And on that note, I give you two that are working for the Illuminati. A pair of assassins, also twin brothers, codenamed Oskar och Blixt. That's Swedish for thunder and lightning. Oskar is a towering figure who is ferocious and strong, with a combat style that is brutal and direct, relying on raw power to overwhelm his opponents. In contrast, his brother Blixt is smaller, but no less deadly. Quick and agile, he strikes with speed and precision. Together, their complementary skill sets make them some of the most lethal assassins in Europe. Oskar has strength at a D12 and vigor at a D10. He's massive. Then we've got agility and smarts at a D6, but only a spirit of D4. His biggest skills are survival at a D10, shooting and fighting both at D8. Then we've got a D6 in athletics. He carries with him a Bowie knife, a Wesley Richards monkey tail sporting combine, and a double-barreled shotgun. For edges and hindrances, he has woodsman, alertness, brute, he's hard to kill, has a killer instinct, marksman, and mighty blow. For hindrances, he's bloodthirsty. He also has a death wish, and he's thin-skinned. For his brother Blixt, We built him on the assassin archetype that you'll find in the Fantasy Companion. So his agility is a D10, vigor at a D8, then smarts and strength at D6 with a spirit of D4. He has athletics and stealth at D8 along with fighting. Then D6s in shooting, survival, and thievery. For equipment, he carries a dagger, a revolver, a sawed-off double-barreled shotgun, and then tools of the trade with blowgun, darts, ether, snake venom, and thieves' tools. For edges and hindrances, he has acrobat, combat acrobat, free runner, quick, and thief, along with poisoner that you'll find again in the Fantasy Companion. He also has bloodthirsty, secret, and wanted. Speaking of villains that pose trouble as a pair, I'd like to present the Count and Countess Dinescu from Romania. Count Dinescu is charismatic and flamboyant, a master swordsman with a penchant for the dramatic. Beneath his aristocratic veneer lies a vicious, vicious foe. Countess Dinescu is a cunning and ruthless manipulator, whose beauty is a weapon and her mind a labyrinth of cunning plans. They're a dangerous alliance to any who cross their paths. Count Dinescu has agility and strength both at D6 as well as vigor. Then we've got spirit at D6, but only smarts at a D4. He has athletics and gambling at D6, but then riding, shooting, and fighting all at D8. Then taunt at a D6. For equipment, he carries a rapier and a Welby pistol. For his edges and hindrances, he is an aristocrat. He has feint, again, because of his expertise in fencing. He has luck, he's quick, rich, and has steady hands. And from the Fantasy Companion, just for fun, I pulled out Dirty Fighter. He's arrogant, thin-skinned, and stubborn. Now for the Countess, her attributes include agility at D6, smarts and spirit both at D8, strength at D4, and vigor at D6. Her most important skills are performance and persuasion both at D8, as well as notice and academics at D8. Then she has thievery at D6. She carries with her a stiletto and a derringer. And for edges and hindrances, she has aristocrat, charismatic, connections, rich, and work the room, along with, also from the Fantasy Companion, the edge of deceptive. Then, for hindrances, we have ruthless and vengeful. So as villains for the campaign, possibly they're agents of the Illuminati carrying out secret missions on their behalf. Possibly they're mercenary freelancers carrying out the agendas of those of the highest bidder. Or maybe they have their own agenda to serve. And quite possibly as part of that, maybe there's one other wrinkle you could throw into the mix. In fact, recently, the city has been gripped by terror as a series of gruesome murders have unfolded. Victims are found in desolate alleyways or abandoned warehouses, their bodies bearing horrific wounds unlike anything the medical examiner has seen, with superhuman strength evident in the manner of death. The pattern is disturbing. Victims are often alone, and attacks seem to correlate with the lunar cycle. There are whispers of strange howls and eerie shadows reported in the hours before the attacks, adding to the city's growing hysteria. So, obviously, we're dealing with a werewolf, but not so obviously, the werewolf is actually the Countess. And in a Victorian Age campaign, I'd give the werewolf one additional advantage. The beast retains its full human intellect, although it's more aggressive in personality, however, when it's in werewolf form. The mindless werewolf is purely an invention of Hollywood. Originally, lycanthropes maintained their regular human intelligence. For the Countess's werewolf form, I used the archetype from the Hero Companion, and there's so many terrific options here. But she's going to have agility and strength, as well as vigor, all at D12, then smarts and spirit at a D8. She's got terrific skills with fighting at a D8, as well as athletics. Then intimidation, notice, stealth, and survival, all at D6. For edges and hindrances, we have brawler, frenzy, quick, fleet-footed. For hindrances, she has impulsive, thin-skinned, and a weakness for silver. For her special abilities in her werewolf form, she has bite and claws, has the ability of transformation, but unfortunately cannot speak, although there are edges that do allow a certain level of speech. Speed, slow regeneration, and infravision. Now, let's finish this video with something more practical as a villain, but far from mundane. Let's meet the brilliant industrialist and rabid patriot, Scottish inventor Darius Douglas, who's also known in his secret identity as the criminal mastermind, the Clockwork Man. His plan is to first free Scotland from English rule and then release Europe from the shackles of tyranny. Because, of course, his corrupt control of the world would be better, right? Whether it's as Darius Douglas or in his criminal mastermind identity as the Clockwork Man, Darius Douglas has smarts at a D10, spirit at a D8, vigor and agility at D6, and then strength at a D4. His skills include repair, as well as weird science at a D10, and electronics at a D8, along with persuasion. His notice is a D6. For equipment, he carries a viscous vial of vexation, basically an entangle glue grenade. He also carries the neural nullifier net, which is stun as an area effect, and for protection, wears the leathery lined long line layer coat. For edges and hindrances, he has Mr. Fix-It, the arcane background of weird science. He is rich, arrogant, and wanted. And the Clockwork Man intends to conquer London and then Europe using giant mechanical spiders. They have attributes of strength at a D12, vigor at a D8, and smarts at a D6. Skills include shooting at a D8 and notice at a D10. Equipment includes a heavy flamethrower and a heavy machine gun. Edges and hindrances are alertness, which are its sensors, night vision, it's fearless, and it's a construct. And as a criminal mastermind, the Clockwork Man has both assistants as well as minions. One of his chief lieutenants is Veronica Swift, the captain of his airship. She's your typical air ace and has agility at a D8, smarts, spirit, strength, and vigor all at D6. She's a pilot with a D8, while the rest of her combat skills are at a D6. She also has a taunt skill at a D8. She carries a Colt Peacemaker and a sawed-off double-barreled shotgun. Her edges and hindrances include ace, attractive, retort, and she's overconfident and impulsive. And for extras, we have airmen. In this case, They all have D6 for attributes, and then D6 in fighting, athletics, persuasion, and shooting. And they carry either Bioshock rifles or pistols. And with that, I'll conclude looking at the Victorian Age as a setting. And if there's one takeaway from me on this, it's that if I were running a Victorian Age campaign, Gaslight as a Savage World sourcebook would be a must. Now, obviously during this video, I could have gone into much greater detail in a whole bunch of different areas, but I think that's enough for anybody to get started on. Now, if there's anything that you'd like to talk about further, I'd be happy to discuss anything from the video or answer questions you may have in the comments. I hope you liked the video and find it helpful for your game. There's more Savage Worlds settings videos to come. Make sure you don't miss them or future SWADE rules videos. Please subscribe and hit the bell in the top right corner. And as always, thank you so much for watching.